Greetings to everyone. Welcome back once again to this educational channel called Bio with Janet. I'm teacher Janet, and today we'll be starting a new topic, which is chapter 5, entitled Metabolism and Enzymes. This chapter is from the Form 4 Biology KSSM syllabus. We'll start with subtopic 5.1. So, what is metabolism? Metabolism refers to all the chemical reactions that occur in a living organism. And at any one time, our human bodies are carrying out thousands and thousands of these metabolic processes. And these processes either use energy or produce energy. Let's find out about the two types of metabolic processes. The learning standards for today's video are as follows. 5.1 Metabolism. Number 1, after this lesson you should be able to define metabolism. Number 2, state and explain the types of metabolism in a cell. And these are anabolism and catabolism. First of all, let's get an overview of the whole of chapter 5. Okay, so chapter 5 is entitled Metabolism and Enzymes, and it will cover three aspects: metabolism, enzymes, and the application of enzymes in daily life. So the teaching videos will be divided into three. Alright, 3 videos, part 1, 2, and 3. In part 1, we'll study metabolism. In part 2, we'll study enzymes. And in part 3, we'll study a little bit more about enzymes and also application of enzymes in daily life. Okay, so we'll start with metabolism. So our subtopic today is 5.1 Metabolism. And our learning standard, number 1, is define and explain metabolism. Say this word, metabolism. What is its definition? Okay, here D stands for definition. So metabolism refers to all the chemical reactions that occur in a living organism. For example, in human beings, at any one time there are thousands of chemical reactions that are going on inside the body of a person. Some of the chemical reactions use energy and some of them release energy. Some of the chemical reactions build up complex molecules and others break down the complex molecules, right? So while all this is going on, the purpose is to maintain life, to make sure that life goes on and the organism has the energy to carry out his cellular activities and also to live. So examples of metabolic reactions or processes are breakdown of food to produce energy in the form of ATP. So if you read this carefully, breakdown of food to produce energy, you would know that it is talking about respiration. Okay, for example, in respiration, glucose is broken down to produce energy. Okay, glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so in other words, this description, this explanation, breakdown of food to produce energy in the form of ATP, is talking about respiration. And also formation of carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. So these are other examples of metabolic reactions. Now, formation of carbohydrates can occur during photosynthesis in plants. Plants will manufacture or synthesize glucose, for example. Okay, that's a carbohydrate. So that's another type of metabolic reaction. Okay, number 2, the second learning standard. State the types of metabolism in a cell. So there are 2 types of metabolism, catabolism and anabolism, which are different from each other. Next, let us explain the process of catabolism. So catabolism is defined as the process of breaking down complex substances or molecules into simple substances, right? For example, here we see a complex substance or molecule made up of many atoms. So when it's broken down to form the simpler substances, like the simpler molecules or atoms, then this reaction releases energy because the chemical bonds are broken. All right. So this reaction releases energy when the bonds are broken. An example is the breakdown of glucose during cellular respiration in the cells to generate energy. All right. So respiration is an example of catabolism because we take the glucose, which is a complex molecule, and we break it down finally to form carbon dioxide and water, which are simpler molecules, with the release of energy, right? So the basic equation for a catabolic reaction is a substrate that is more complex broken down to form the products which are simpler, okay, to form simpler molecules. And one example is respiration, okay, where let's look at the process of respiration. So here is a bio key for you to use. That means it is a memory aid which I've invented, and it's called GOEC, right? GOEC stands for respiration. G for glucose, O for oxygen, W for water, E for energy, and C for carbon dioxide. Simple, right? So once you remember this term and you keep repeating it to yourself, you will be able to write the word equation for respiration very easily. GOEC. So in this equation, respiration, you can see that glucose, which is the complex molecule, is broken down into simpler molecules of water and carbon dioxide, right, with the release of energy. So this is a catabolic process or an example of catabolism. So in contrast, let us look at anabolism. Now explain the process of anabolism. So anabolism is defined as the process of synthesizing complex molecules from simple molecules. Let's look at this example here. So here we have a lot of simple molecules or atoms, and when we combine them together so that they form bonds amongst each other, then a complex molecule has been synthesized, right? And usually energy is needed to form the chemical bonds. Okay, so this reaction uses or absorbs energy. An example is the formation of glucose during photosynthesis, right? So when glucose is formed in photosynthesis by green plants, actually the carbon dioxide and water is used by the green plants together with the light energy from the sun to form the more complex compound, which is glucose. So this is a process of anabolism or an anabolic process. Now the basic equation for an anabolic process or reaction is as follows. The substrates are the simpler molecules such as carbon dioxide and water. So when they combine together, they form a molecule like glucose, which is your complex product, a product that is more complex than the substrates. All right. So one example of anabolism is photosynthesis, and here again I have a bio key for you, which is WEG-GO. To help you remember that this is the process of photosynthesis, I put a PO at the arrow here, WEG-POGO. So that it's easier for you to recall that this is the process of photosynthesis, and don't confuse it with respiration. Okay, so that you won't confuse it with respiration, which is GOEC. Again, this type of acronym is very simple to remember, and it will help you in the long run to really remember the word equation for photosynthesis, which is water plus carbon dioxide in the presence of light absorbed by chlorophyll produces glucose plus oxygen using the light energy. So here, if we look at this process, why is it called an anabolic process? We are taking two simple substances here, water and carbon dioxide, and then combine them together with the use of energy to form the glucose, which is a more complex molecule. Okay, so this process is an anabolic process, or an example of anabolism. This diagram shows the relationship between catabolism and anabolism. So in catabolism, complex compounds such as carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins in the body are broken down to produce the simpler end products such as carbon dioxide, water, and ammonia. And energy is released, which is used to form the ATP, synthesize the ATP, which is an immediate energy store. So here, for example, our complex molecule may be carbohydrates that are broken down through cellular respiration. Now, one example of the carbohydrate is glucose, right? So glucose can be broken down in cellular respiration to form water and carbon dioxide. And in the process, a lot of energy is released for the formation of ATP, which stores that energy in a chemical form in its chemical bonds. Next, now that's catabolism. So next, in anabolism, we see that simple building blocks in the body, such as simple sugars, amino acids, and fatty acids, are used to form the macromolecules of the cell, such as carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids in the cell. And this process requires energy from ATP, which was produced through catabolism. In other words, catabolism provided the energy for anabolism. All right. So one example is when sugars like glucose, okay, glucose is converted into glycogen, which is stored in the liver cells when there's excess glucose in the blood. Or another example is when cells take the amino acids and then join them together to form the more complex compound, such as proteins. In order to make enzymes, to synthesize enzymes, hormones, and hemoglobin, this process has to occur. The amino acids have to be used to synthesize the complex proteins. So that is anabolism. Here is a very useful table that I've drawn up to compare catabolism and anabolism. So when you compare it, you are able to differentiate better between these two processes, and also it will help you to understand quickly what they are all about. Okay? Now it can be asked as an exam question for objective, structured, or essay question. State the differences between catabolism and anabolism, right? So here, 4 marks, let's say. So firstly, in terms of its purpose, the process and the purpose. Catabolism is the process of breaking down complex substances into simple substances, whereas anabolism is just the opposite. It's the process of synthesizing complex molecules from simple molecules. Now, in terms of the energy, catabolism releases energy, whereas anabolism uses or absorbs energy. Example of catabolism is the breakdown of glucose during cellular respiration to generate energy. So the example is cellular respiration. For anabolism, the example is the formation of glucose during photosynthesis in plants. Now, the basic reaction or the basic equation for catabolism is A, a more complex substrate, is broken down to form B and C, which are simple products or simpler products. Whereas for anabolism, A plus B, these are both simple substrates or simpler substrates. So they are used to synthesize C, which is a more complex product. So this table can be copied into your notebook because it's very useful. And when you do your revision, straight away you will be able to remember and understand how to explain it too. I've got a very good memory tip for you, which I thought up. And it's very easy for you to remember what catabolism and anabolism is about by just remembering this, okay? So when you think of catabolism, from the word catabolism, think of the cat, C-A-T, the cat. So I also have a cat, used to have a cat at home, and I like cats very much. But they have this habit, right? If you have ever had a cat, you see sometimes they'll go to the furniture and start scratching with their claws. They'll you know, expose their claws and then they will scratch the furniture. It's like they are trying to sharpen their claws like that. And they scratch not once, but a few times with both their four limbs, right? So cat breaks down furniture, right? And so this will remind us that in catabolism, or catabolism is a process that breaks down complex molecules, breaks down, okay? So whereas for anabolism, think of ant, ant. So what do ants do? Now ants like to eat the sweet things. So if you find some ants on your table, if you follow the trail, you will find that actually it leads to an ant nest, right? Not so. Ants like to build nests. That's their home. So ant synthesizes nests or builds nests. It's a process of building up. So anabolism is a process that synthesizes something, synthesizes complex molecules. Simple, right? So I find that catabolism is very easy to remember. Once you remember, cat breaks down something, breaks down the furniture, the tables and the chairs. Then the opposite will be anabolism, which synthesizes something, like the ants. Finally, let us look at some examples of processes, metabolic processes, and try to identify whether they are catabolic processes or anabolic processes. A question that can be asked in the exam as an objective question or structured question. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Conversion of glucose into glycogen in the liver. Is this a catabolic process or an anabolic process? So to begin with, let us find out which is the complex molecule, which is the simple molecule here, the simpler molecule. Now, which is the complex molecule? Yes, it's glycogen, okay, which is a food storage compound in the liver. And glucose is the simpler molecule. So now you're converting glucose into glycogen. That means glucose into glycogen, from simple to complex compound. So simple to complex. So what is it? Is it catabolic or anabolic process? So use your memory tip here, right? We know that ants synthesize nests and cat breaks down the furniture. Okay, so is it a process of catabolism where something is broken down into something simpler, complex to simple, or is it anabolic process where you're building something from something small, you're building up something, synthesizing something more complex? Yes, it is from simple to complex, right? So it's building up, and this is anabolic process. Ants synthesize nests or build the nest. Okay, now second one, oxidation of glucose in respiration. Once you have this word respiration, you know that it's the breakdown of glucose already. It's breakdown. So breakdown. So catabolism or anabolism? Cats break down, right? So catabolic process breaks down substances. Production of enzymes from amino acids. Which is the simple substance? Amino acids, right? Enzymes are more complex. So you use the simple substances and make the more complex substances is the building up or synthesizing something. So production here will tell you already. Production usually is if it's talking about synthesizing something. So it is a anabolic process. Ants build their nest, right? Plants carry out photosynthesis. We studied just now. Photosynthesis is the process of production of the complex organic compounds like glucose from the simpler substances like carbon dioxide and water. So building up. So it is anabolic process. Okay, now you try the last two yourself first, and then I'll give you the answer in a short while. Alright, so glycolysis, which is the breakdown of glucose into pyruvate. This you'll be studying in chapter 7 of the Form 4 syllabus. Once you see the word breakdown, it's clear cut already. Cats break down, right? Furniture. So catabolic process, right? And the last one, synthesis of something, DNA. You know this is a complex molecule, right? From nucleotides. What are nucleotides? Nucleotides, as we have studied from chapter 4, they are the basic units that are used to build up the DNA and the RNA. So nucleotides are the basic units, and they are used to make the more complex substance. So they build up, right? They're used to build up DNA. So therefore, this process is a process of anabolism. Ants build their nest. So that's the end of the lesson, and I hope that you found it helpful. Do share, like, and also subscribe, right? So thanks for watching, and do take care. Goodbye for now.